This episode of Inside Games is sponsored by Wealthfront. Go to invest.wealthfront.com/insidegames to get your first $5,000 managed for free.
Welcome back to Inside Games, the only gaming channel brave enough to demand that Sony release Bloodborne on the PC right now.
Putting our demands out there right now. If Sony doesn't meet our demands, then we'll just buy God of War anyway, and I guess keep demanding it, Sony.
We got no leverage here. We got none.
God of War was a really good game, so I'm definitely gonna buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I am too, man.
Well, call off the protest, I guess. Stuff those signs in the trash, who cares? Everybody's gonna be busy enjoying God of War in 8K with big titty mods when it releases for the PC on January 14th, 2022.
Man, Kratos with double Ds, let's go. I can't wait. Sony announced the date themselves in a post on the PlayStation blog, which also revealed the PC port will support unlocked frame rates, ultra-wide resolution support, keyboard and mouse controls, higher resolution shadows, improved reflections, NVIDIA DLSS support, and enhancements to the ambient occlusion pipeline.
Nothing gets a PC gamer salivating like some weird-sounding feature that no one's really sure what it does.
What do you mean? Ambient occlusion is definitely my favorite kind of dance music. It's awesome.
Speaking of, since it's PC, you can expect to see Kratos dropping a hot orange justice before too long.
Wait. Kratos was already in Fortnite. There are just no jokes left here, Lawrence. We've gotten through all of them.
Anyway, the PlayStation blog post concludes by linking to the game's store page on both Steam and the Epic Games Store, which is a welcome sight, but a really surreal one to look at. The God of War on Steam, it's right there.
It's really cool. Apparently that's not all Sony's up to when it comes to PC ports.
This one's real spicy. So the Xbox era podcast co-host, Shpeshal Nick, dropped a whole lot of Bloodborne-related rumors on their latest episode, which streamed on October 16th.
So while Nick did qualify that all these bombs came from memory, he reported that the recently acquired Bluepoint Games has a ton of very anticipated projects on the way.
I've been told there's a PC port that's already done. And I think what's happening with Bluepoint is I believe Bluepoint is doing the sequel, like Colin said. And I think Bluepoint might also be doing the console remaster of the first one. I think.
Holy shit, Bruce! We got Bloodborne on PC, it's already done, and a remaster for PS5, and a sequel. It's everything.
I mean, that's a lot for this one studio to do.
Yeah, it is. Not to mention that Sony only acquired them in late September, so it's been less than a month.
Yeah, which means they made the apparently completed PC port while they were independent. So that by itself's not so weird because they made the Demon's Souls PS5 remake while independent after all.
That can fly, but what's a little more strange about this one is that apparently they were also working on 2 more big ticket projects connected with Bloodborne or Sony before being acquired. It's just anecdotal, but in my experience, it's kind of weird for an independent studio to have that many simultaneous projects with one publisher like that.
I mean, obviously the acquisition could have been a matter of fact long before Sony officially executed the deal. It sounds like they were in talks probably for years. Or maybe some of these projects were officially greenlit in between Sony's acquisition a month ago and now.
Yeah, well, what's weirdest of all, it gets a little more weird, is according to Wikipedia, Bluepoint only has a headcount of around 70 people. So that's enough to make one big project at a time, but that on top of a port and a remaster and a sequel? That's where it starts to seem a little fishy.
Granted, Wikipedia could be wrong, or Nick's leak could be inaccurate, so that we could have some bad information.
Yeah, misheard, misremembered, whatever. Still fun to think about. But damn it, Sony. Let us play Bloodborne at 60 frames per second. We're dying over here. It could look so good.
So that does hit on a good question. Why is Sony being so coy with their AAA game releases on PC? What's the holdup? I don't understand.
They got so many games they've been sitting on that could be incredible PC releases. Demon's Souls Remaster, Bloodborne, Gran Turismo 7, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, Marvel's Spider-Man. That's just to name a few. There's way more than that.
To answer that question, we gotta look at the timeline of Sony's growing relationship with publishing on PC, and we're gonna use a little bit of our favorite clown math.
Sprinkle a little clown math over for flavor. I can't wait to taste that sweet, sweet clown math, but we'll get there right after a word from our sponsor.
Oh man, so this is actually really cool that we actually get to say that, because we started this channel, no real promo, which you probably know, no backing or anything, except for the Patreon support, which has been amazing. So thank you to all of you guys who are watching, the Patreon support, because now we are able to actually scale up a little bit and find a few sponsors for Inside Games. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's the early support that got us here, and we're just going to keep going. So we really appreciate it, and that means it's Wealthfront time.
If you think it's hard to buy a PlayStation 5 or 3080 right now, wait until you try to retire. That's right. If you want to be swimming in sweet video games long into old age, the time is now to start planning for the future. And luckily, our sponsor Wealthfront is here to make that easy and approachable. This should go without saying, but you can't rely on your company or the US government to provide anything close to a living retirement fund. So either you get Elon to tweet about your crypto, or you do it like everyone else and invest. Lawrence and I have both tried various 401k and investment services, and I can say from experience that Wealthfront is one of the easiest and cleanest services to get started. Then you sign up, take a short quiz to determine your risk tolerance. They ask you stuff like, quote, if you lost 10% of your investment in a day, what would you do? End quote, stuff like that. The service gauges your responses and recommends collections of investments that match your risk tolerance. You can manually tweak the investment ratios or control it granularly if you want, but the goal is to get you started with an investment plan that won't freak you out. Then you set up a monthly deposit and let Wealthfront do the rest. They have software that rebalances your investment slate as the market changes to make sure it's still in bounds for your risk tolerance, meaning you can just kick back, watch your money work for you. Wealthfront uses software for another great benefit too, automated tax loss harvesting. Basically, when an eligible ETF in your portfolio declines in value, they can tactically sell it to help offset other gains and reduce your taxable gains. Wealthfront says this covers their advisory fee, which is 0.25%. 3 times over for clients using their classic recommended portfolio. So not only does software management balance your risk load, but it also can help maximize your tax savings. And of course, we have a special promo just for the people that watch Inside Games. You can get your first $5,000 managed for free for life by going to invest.wealthfront.com/insidegames. All you need is a $500 deposit to get started and lock down that PlayStation 28 when it hits in 2079 or whatever. Once more, that's invest.wealthfront.com/insidegames, or hit that link in the description. Hey, thank you, Wealthfront, for sponsoring Inside Games.
Thank you very much, Wealthfront. Back to the question at hand, back to sweet, sweet video games. Why is Sony waiting so long to publish their entire raft of amazing games on PC?
Well, technically, Sony's been publishing games on PC a lot longer than it may seem. Dating back to Helldivers in 2015. The years since have been filled with a grip of Sony publications like Neo, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Flower, and many others.
Notably, these are all developed by third parties, though. The real heat landed when Sony published their first PlayStation Studios game with Horizon Zero Dawn in August 2020. And this led to an interesting shift in how PlayStation talked about the PC platform.
Yeah, because before that release, Sony sounded way more hesitant to release their first-party games on the PC, at least according to PlayStation Studios head Herman Hulst in March of 2020.
Yeah, it sounded like Hulst was anticipating some blowback for publishing on PC, which, yeah, I can kind of get it. In response to that kind of cloud in the air, Hulst said, quote, to maybe put a few minds at ease, releasing one first-party AAA title to PC doesn't necessarily mean that every game now will come to PC. In my mind, Horizon Zero Dawn was just a great fit in this particular instance. We don't have any plans for day-and-date PC releases, and we remain 100% committed to dedicated hardware.
Then Horizon Zero Dawn came out, and suddenly, Sony seemed way more pro-PC.
In a February 2021 interview with GQ, Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan spoke very positively about the company's experience publishing Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. Moreover, Ryan summarized why publishing PlayStation Studios games on PC makes a lot of business sense right now.
Yeah, so we'll summarize Ryan's comments. He said that not only does Sony have a great catalog of software ready to go thanks to their studio's output over the PlayStation 4 generation, but the cost of porting games to PC has come down as well because PlayStation 4 has PC architecture.
Yeah, it's gotten more similar. And I imagine all the dev and port tools have become more refined as well. So add to that whole mix the increasing cost of developing newer, higher spec games for the PlayStation 5, and it's the perfect time to publish some low-cost games that reach an entirely new audience on the PC platform.
Yeah, Ryan also described the straightforward success of the activity of publishing a game on PC. People liked it and they bought it, which you don't hear very often. We interpret that to mean that the publishing process was straightforward, sales were healthy without having to invest a lot in marketing or awareness, which just sounds all the way awesome. I'm very proud of my PC brethren because that doesn't happen very often.
Ryan also noted that, quote, there was no massive adverse reaction from the PlayStation community either. Quote, so we will continue to take mission steps in this direction.
It's weird. It's like people love video games and want them everywhere.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to manage your community, and if they get mad at you, like maybe they'll still buy your games, but it still becomes an annoying thing to deal with every day.
Though Ryan didn't quite say it in these terms, sounds like Sony approached their first PC release with concern, but found the process uncomplicated. The sales good, and PlayStation fanboys didn't flip their shit like expected.
Yeah, so do it again. Why not?
Which has sort of been happening. Sony published Days Gone from Sony Bend on PC in May 2021, and they announced Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection for PS5 and PC in September of 2021.
And God of War this week, obviously. Name of the video.
So if we treat the launch of Horizon Zero Dawn in late 2020 as their internal moment of validation for PC publishing, that means they've launched one Sony Studios game in 2021 and announced 2 more ports for 2022 in the year and few months since.
I mean, that sounds like a normal, healthy, sustainable way to scale up a publishing slate on a new platform. And maybe that's a vision of what's to come. Maybe we got, what, 2, 3 PlayStation Studios games coming to PC every year for the next few years?
Yeah, but where's my fucking Bloodborne?
Still no fucking Bloodborne!
Where is it?
Where's Bloodborne? That's the other factor here. Apart from just discussing why they're doing it, is the manner in which they're doing it. God of War is hitting the PC 4 years after it came out on PlayStation. Same with Horizon, actually. That came out in 2017, so 5 years, actually, until it, well, no, it was 4 years, yeah, 2021.
Theoretically, the Uncharted remaster is coming to PC, quote, shortly after the PS5 version, whatever that means. But Uncharted 4 came out in 2016 and Lost Legacy in 2017. So those are going to land on PC 5 years after their original release.
So that leads us to the real, actual, big, huge question. 1, Bloodborne, where is it? Give me it. But 2, will Sony ever publish day and date on PC like Microsoft does?
I've got an answer for you, and the answer is there's no way. There's no way they're gonna do that.
We're gonna have to wait 4 years after Bloodborne 2 comes out.
Yeah.
They're gonna give us Bloodborne 1,
Yes.
and 2 is gonna be over there looking amazing.
Microsoft has gone all in on making Game Pass a revenue driver over the next generation, so publishing across platforms makes a little more sense since it all drives to Game Pass in the end. You get the game on PC and Xbox day and date, which is awesome.
Very awesome. However, Sony's revenue strategies are a little different than that because they make ass loads of money selling software, traditionally. Because of that, it just makes too much business sense for them to reinforce the PlayStation platform as their lead sales platform because they don't have to split revenue with anyone on it.
Real quick note on that, PC platforms like Steam keep a portion of all game sales in exchange for hosting and selling the game. So traditionally, it was always a 70-30 split, but that's been changing lately. We'll get to that later, but point is, when Sony sells a digital game through their own store, they keep it all. They don't share any revenue with Valve or anybody else.
And they're really good about managing their online stores and presence to generate revenue, but they're actually a little too good at it.
Like getting sued too good, Lawrence.
Yeah, we reported on this back in May. A proposed class action suit alleges that by not selling digital codes for individual games, Sony unfairly eliminates competition and then uses that power to keep digital game prices artificially high. And this is especially important on digital-only consoles like the PlayStation 5, since game prices can't even compete with physical discs at that point.
Sounds to me like a monopoly. The lawsuit compared prices of physical games carried by retailers like GameStop and Walmart to the digital versions offered by Sony and found that, on average, games are 74% more expensive to buy digitally directly from Sony.
I mean, it's smart, but it's also a little bit evil, just a teeny bit. And that's digital too, where the cost of distribution is arguably less than physical. So that's even more margin they get to pocket. It's good business. Point is, between this and their hesitance to allow crossplay, which also kind of factors into their PlayStation Store revenues, Sony has gone to unique lengths to preserve and grow their software revenues as funneled through the PlayStation Store specifically.
Well, why do they do that, Lawrence?
Because it works, dummy! They make so much money!
Of course, yeah. As of Sony's most recent earnings disclosure, the Game and Network Services division brings in the most revenue across the entire company. And digital software and DLC sales brings in the most revenue of any subdivision.
Games includes things like PlayStation Plus and stuff like that, but it's just game sales. Selling games, selling DLC, that brings in the most money for Sony, like by far. So now that's important because when you combine those two aspects we were talking about, the fact that Sony makes the most money from their software sales and their predilection to protect and reinforce that particular revenue stream, that's what makes it seem really unlikely that Sony would jeopardize that money flow by simultaneously publishing on the PC, because then the PC can compete with the PS5.
Yep, exactly. Keeping their banner releases on PlayStation for a few years nets them more money in their own ecosystem since they don't have to split revenue with Steam or Epic Games Store or whoever else. It also encourages the spread of that ecosystem by encouraging new players to buy the hardware.
In contrast, the PC marketplace is not locked down in any way, so you'll have customers seeing a $70 PS5 game right next to a $12 Steam key that's been laundered through a Russian key reseller or something. So that kind of starts to distort the value proposition of those games. Not to mention that some of those customers might opt for the cheaper version of the game when they have maybe they can't afford a PS5 yet, but then they try to play this brand new prestige art game on the company laptop, and it's choked down with malware crypto miners, and it runs like ass. So then they go out to social media, start bad-mouthing this new game. You know, it starts to jeopardize this prestige image that they've been very good at cultivating over the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's why it makes sense to release your banner software on your banner platform and enjoy all the revenues you can get from it first, and then double dip on PC 4 years down the line.
What's frustrating is this is exactly the same thing that nearly every publisher did throughout the 2010s because they were worried about piracy and stuff on the PC platform. Most publishers eventually stopped doing that, of publishing on console first and then PC a few months later. But they also, these other publishers I'm talking about, didn't have a wholly owned sales pipeline in the first place like Sony does.
This is probably what we'll see for the next few years, a gradual rollout of legacy titles in a manner that never jeopardizes the revenue streams of first-party releases on first-party hardware.
Unless... First, what if there was another way?
Wait, there's an unless? What do you mean, what?
So there is one way Sony could secure their revenue streams on PlayStation hardware and release on PC at the same time. And that's if they release their own store on PC, and that's the only way to get games on PC. I mean, I'm sure they've thought of it, right? Of course they have. That setup would give them the control, really, the control over prices and all of the revenue streams from prestige new releases. And then they also can exert a little more control over what it's being played on and how and where.
Steam for Sony. So regardless of whether or not we think this would be a good thing for PC players, like really, do we need another store and Sony's attempts to push up game prices on PC? We're going to examine if the idea is even feasible for Sony or not.
So for all we know, they're already working on it, right? But just for fun, let's toss the idea back and forth and see what happens.
So for starters, Sony did already build their own store for PlayStation. They built a new one for every platform, in fact.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked to boot up the PS5 and see that the store was different. I thought it would just be the same storefront. But I like that they put the effort in for seemingly not a lot of reason, but it looks cool. So the point is, though, they already have the internal experience and knowledge to create and operate a store, which is, it's a bit different than a company like Epic, who had to spin it up from the ground.
Yeah, that's true. For Sony, it's more of a question of the cost of making and operating a PC store versus the 30% revenue they lose by selling on stores like Steam and Good Old Games. And actually, since Epic started offering more competitive revenue splits, Valve actually adjusted their revenue share based on total game revenue. Hey, competition is good.
Exactly, right? For a company like Sony, odds are their first-party releases would easily qualify for the 20% revenue split instead of 30%, and that's presuming they didn't negotiate with Valve for the best split in the first place before they even launched.
On that note, so here's a fun thought. It's very possible that Epic forcing revenue shares lower encouraged Sony to bring AAA to the PC space, since revenue splits got more favorable for game publishers. How about that? And that sounds absolutely true. I really believe that.
We went from Epic Games launching to God of War on PC, like the dominoes actually fell that way. Do you like Epic Game Store now?
No, they don't. They hate it. They hate it.
Back to the potential of a Sony PlayStation PC store. The question is, I think, how would the cost of owning and operating a PC store stack up with the, presumably 20% cut that Sony loses by selling through Steam?
Yeah, so to get an idea of what those numbers look like, guess what? Inside Games Clown Math!
Before we get into this clown math disclosure, absolutely none of the numbers we're about to talk about are reliable in any way. It's all based on projections and pointless comparisons, same old thing.
So we wouldn't have our clown math any other way, so let's do it, Lawrence. Let's get into it.
Let's go. Okay, so analyst firm Superdata estimated that Horizon Zero Dawn sold 716,000 copies back in September of 2020.
And they sold those copies on PC when it was released on Steam. They didn't provide a similar estimate for Days Gone when it launched in 2021, but what we do have here, peak concurrent players on Steam in the launch window for both games.
Well, that's a data point we can bridge this gap with, so...
Why not?
Yeah, why not? So if we assume, and I don't know why we would, but let's assume that the same ratio of players were active on Steam as bought the game for both games, then Days Gone potentially, maybe sorta, shoulda, coulda sold 350,000 copies. Both games are $50, so that's 53.3 million revenue in total from PC.
Okay, so for both those games, Days Gone and Horizon Zero Dawn, 53.3 million, according to Clown Math, which at an 80-20 revenue split would have 42 million go to Sony and 10.6 million to Valve.
Okay, so theoretically, that's $10 million Sony could just keep in their own pocket if they launch their own store on PC. But with that figure in mind, is $10 million enough to justify building and launching your own store on PC?
Well, the answer is fuck no. if Epic Games is anything to go by, because they've already spent 500 million on their store.
Jesus.
And do not expect to see any profits on it until 2027.
To be fair again, clown comparison, that comparison's not entirely accurate, because Epic is trying to do a whole lot more than Sony would in this circumstance. They're offering a ton of free games, they're undercutting the profit margins of other stores, and they're out there securing exclusive publishing rights for various games, and all of that is just burning cash.
Yeah, Sony would only have to sell you their games, and that's it. But still, it puts the cost of getting those storefronts off the ground into a little more context in the case you were wondering.
Yeah, remember that this mythical 10 million that Sony handed over to Valve wouldn't be all profit for them either. There's cost involved with the operation of a store too, even if Sony's the one doing it.
Yes, for some information on that, we go to some guy on the Steam forums from 2017. This is my favorite. I found this data point yesterday. We were talking about it. And I was like, why not? This dude, who cares?
We're deep into clown math, fuck it. All right, so Crack estimates that Valve spends 134 million per year on just bandwidth costs.
Man, again, they're serving everybody's games, not just their own. But it's a good reminder that nothing is free. The bandwidth, the electricity to power the servers, the people to make sure they don't catch on fire, it goes on and on.
Yeah, but here's a quick clown math hit for you. Crack cites the data rate as 2 cents per gigabyte for big data.
So Horizon Zero Dawn is 67.22 gigabytes. So each download of the game costs $1.34, which by itself, 2.6% of the $50 sale price, just to get the game to someone's PC or PlayStation.
Just to serve the game, you've lost like 3% of the sale. Jeez. So in context, there's not a lot of reason for Sony to bite off those long-term costs right now, because they just did that too with the PlayStation 5. Sony's last investor report specifically cited the startup costs of making and selling the PlayStation 5 as the reason their gaming revenues actually dipped year over year.
As a division, Sony's already experiencing a lean year, whatever, to set up for more profits down the road. It doesn't really make sense to do that twice over in such a short amount of time. Instead, it is the right time for some low overhead, quick flip moneymakers to offset the costs you incurred by launching the PlayStation 5.
And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's also what every software company does in this exact situation. Whenever there's a new generation of hardware, developers experience a lot of sunk costs developing new tools and engine refinements for this new, more powerful hardware. So you release a bunch of remasters while you're working on that stuff to kind of make up the costs and bridge the gap until you can start releasing your next gen stuff.
Yeah, Sony is sitting on a huge backlog that they can trickle out whenever they want to cover any revenue gaps in their first party publishing on PlayStation 5. So if I were a Sony executive, I would not be evil, first of all. Second of all, I'd be very chuffed that I have like just 10 years worth of exclusives to release in my back pocket. I got so many games I can put on PC.
Yeah, and to be fair, you can't just flip a switch and have a PC port ready to go. But, you know, it's very predictable work. The costs are very known. You give it to a studio you trust. They flip this stuff year and a half. It's very predictable and very safe, unlike developing a new game for a new console.
That's one thing we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about the cost of porting the game. We didn't even include that because we really don't know in our clown math. But that there is cost in porting the game as well.
That's true. Yeah, that takes another bite out of your take home. So in the end, it feels like Sony's the kind of company that would maybe eventually pursue a dedicated storefront on PC, especially if the revenues are growing and growing for their releases. Feels a little fast for them right now, especially if they can pocket a nice check from Valve and just not worry about the rest of it.
So in the end, there's your rock hard Inside Games prediction. The PC will continue to get PlayStation games 3 to 4 years after their initial release, unless Sony decides to launch their own store.
Now here's the real devil's question, and this is the what do you think part of the episode, but like, would you take the trade? Would you take a dedicated Sony store with $70 or $80 AAA games to be able to play them on the PC day one?
Well, I think the answer for both of us is probably yes, because we're both PC gamers. But
Probably
I mean,
yes, yeah.
I'm interested to find out if like people that have, you know, like maybe low to mid-level PCs would do that. And I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not sure that they would, because I mean, you and I, we have been PC enthusiasts for a very long time. So of course we're gonna big thumbs up. But I'm not sure about the other people that aren't as dedicated to their PCs.
The other scary aspect is, let's say Sony does launch a store on PC, and they're selling AAA games first day for $70, 70 US. Every other publisher is going to see that, and they're going to realize it's a price point people are willing to tolerate. No one's been the first mover there. Sony's selling them at 70 on the PS5, but that's a very walled store, like we were saying. So there is the chance that if Sony comes into town, we get to play these prestige games, we get to cry and get in touch with our inner selves, but it might also nudge the price of games higher.
Either way, you're probably going to see a Steam for Sony here in the next 5 years. So get ready to install another store.
That's fine. Bloodborne 2. Just give it to me. High frame rate, Bloodborne, please.